Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk is live and direct on a Tuesday. It's going up on a Tuesday for the next 3 hours here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and in living color in our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and our Facebook page, WIBW News. However, wherever, whenever you're tuning in to the program today, thanks so much for being a part of the audience. We appreciate you here on 580 Sports Talk. My name is Dan Lucero. I'll be largely solo today. Spencer Dupuis will be in for a little bit later on. Brendan Dworzinski is off today. So it's a whole lot of me for the next 3 hours, and I'm excited. I'm excited to be with you. It's Chiefs game week, so plenty of Chiefs conversation to have today. We're going to talk some KU football. We're going to have a little hard talk about KU football, about whether or not they might have just plateaued or maybe even worse, hit their head on a ceiling for what the program is for right now. And not only do I have an opinion on that, Michael Swain has an opinion on that. He'll be our guest today for Jayhawk Weekly. That's coming up at the bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. We're going to talk a little baseball because I never miss a chance to talk some baseball when I can. The GM meetings are this week, not General Motors, General Managers meetings in Vegas this week. So some early business having a chance to get done as the Royals approach an important offseason as they look to return to the postseason after missing out in 2025. And ESPN's Jeff Passan has a perfect move for the Royals. He suggested a perfect offseason move for 21 of the 30 teams, I think it was, that have realistic designs on competing and being a contender in 2026. And I love it. I actually do think it's perfect. And we'll get into that a little bit later on in the show today. As I mentioned, we're going to talk some Chiefs coming off of the bye week. We all know Andy Reid's record coming off of a regular season bye. In case you don't know it by heart, 22-4 in his head coaching career. Andy Reid, 22-4, win coming off a bye. But I looked at the recent games that the Chiefs have played coming off of bye weeks, and there's one trend that stands out about those games that is extremely odd, given the reputation of Andy Reid as a master of utilizing the extra week to get his team ready to go. One trend that has really stood out when I went back and I looked at the last 4, I shrunk the sample size a bit. You know, you want better information, you widen the sample size. But at the same time, how much do we really learn about how the Chiefs are going to play coming out of a bye week from going back to like 2005 and what Donovan McNabb and the boys did coming out of their bye week? What does that have to do with Patrick Mahomes against the Bronco defense this week? Not much, right? So I shrunk the sample size a little bit. And when I did, I found one trend that blew me away. One trend that I would not have expected to be true coming from the last 4 games in which the Chiefs are playing coming off of a bye week. So we'll get into that and a little bit of early week talk about the offensive line because they will be in the spotlight against the Broncos because the only way the Chiefs lose to the Broncos is if the offensive line gets overwhelmed. And they're kind of coming off of a game where they got a little bit overwhelmed. So was that the anomaly or was that a troubling sign of things to come? We'll get into that a little bit later on too. And speaking of the NFL, I'd love to watch a good primetime NFL game once before I die. What a miserable Monday Night Football game that was. I watched the whole thing. I hated it. I hated every second of it, but I watched the entire game. It was nothing at halftime. The Eagles won 10-7. Those might be the 2 best teams in the NFC. I don't think either coach is very good. Weird thing to say about a coach, 2 coaches who perennially get their teams to the playoffs and one coach with a Super Bowl ring, but like Nick Sirianni and Matt LaFleur, how do you trust those guys further than you can throw them? Because I don't know that I do. we'll get into that here in a little while as well. Plus, we'll do our typical Tuesday shenanigans. In lieu of Random Question Tuesday, because it's just going to be me for the better part of the day, we'll do a little Ask Me Anything in the 5 o'clock hour. A little AMA, if you will. I haven't done that in a while. So we'll do some of that in the 5 o'clock hour today. Have a little fun as we wind down the program. We've also got headlines. We got What Is Wrong With You, and a whole lot more. And I want to hear from you throughout the program today. Your voice is invited and encouraged. The text line number is 785-272-9429. That is 785-272-9429. You can also interact if you are watching the show live on YouTube throughout the program, 3 to 6 Central Time. Go like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. There is a live chat feature that you can access, and you can interact with yours truly, and you can interact with each other throughout the show. It's a fun way to build a little 580 Sports Talk community, talk about the things we're talking about, or like talk about what you had for lunch. It's your chat, really. So make of it what you will, and grow that 580 Sports Talk community in the live chat on our YouTube channel. That is, again, over at 580 Sports Talk. See Mark and Paul already into the chat today. Appreciate you guys for being along. Look forward to hearing from you and more of you throughout the show. If you've never been in on the live chat before, today's a really good day to do it. Today's a really good day to go check it out. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. If you're subscribed, if you have a Google account, essentially, you are logged in to YouTube when you go to YouTube. So you're logged in. You can post stuff in the chat and say hello and weigh in on what we're talking about. Or again, like tell us what your grocery list is. It can go all over the place in there. That's why we love it. Again, that is the live chat over on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Before we get into the Chiefs today, I do want to acknowledge that today is Veterans Day. And I want to, doesn't feel quite right to say Happy Veterans Day. But I do want to acknowledge the veterans, and you can tell me if I'm wrong. If you're active duty or have served, you can tell me if I'm wrong about that, or you can tell me if I shouldn't be uneasy to say Happy Veterans Day. I've always felt a little bit uneasy about that particular terminology, but I do want to acknowledge and express my appreciation for and gratitude for all of our fighting men and women, both active duty and those who are retired duty, who have served. I personally, my father-in-law served, my brother-in-law served, and I extend my gratefulness, my appreciation to them and to everybody else who might be hearing this, who served our country, who served it overseas, who served it during wartime, and those who maybe didn't do any active fighting or serve during wartime, but their service, their decision to enlist, to serve our country, to protect our country, should not go unremarked upon either and unappreciated. So a thank you is what I will express today to all of our veterans, and I hope that you will join me in saying the same. Let's get into some football, shall we? Like I said, everybody knows Andy Reid's record coming out of the bye in the regular season. It is 22-4 in his previous 26 seasons as a head coach. That's really good, obviously. But there was something sort of gnawing at me, and it's one of those things, you know, when you have a thought, you can go and check the data, right? We've got the data. We have the record. We can go and look at the actual performances by the Kansas City Chiefs coming out of the byes the last handful of years. Because I don't necessarily think what Andy Reid was doing coming out of the bye in like 2007 or 2010 with the Eagles, I don't think that really means anything as it pertains to these Chiefs, this era of Chiefs football. Even going back to like 2020. So 2020, coming out of a bye, Chiefs played the Raiders. Maybe you remember this game. Chiefs-Raiders at home. The Chiefs trailed at halftime. They fell behind in the final 2 minutes on a Jason Witten receiving touchdown. Remember Jason Witten's Raiders career? They're like minute 40 to go. Witten scored a touchdown. Raiders went ahead. Mahomes walked the Chiefs down the field, hit Kelsey for the game-winning touchdown with like 20 seconds left. Chiefs won the game 35-31. Didn't play great, but they won the game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had 2 rushing touchdowns. This is a long time ago, right? That's how long ago that game was. Like, how much can we pull from a game from a week of prep where Clyde Edwards-Helaire was RB1 and the other team threw a go-ahead touchdown in the fourth quarter to Jason Witten, literally Jason Witten, who's, I think, coaching high school football these days. So I shrunk the sample size even further than that. I wanted to go back and look at the last 4 performances by the Chiefs coming out of the bye. So 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. And one common thread jumped out that was really surprising to me, a bit of an eye-opener to me. In reverse order, 2024, Chiefs coming out of the bye. They beat the Saints going into the bye last year. It was an early bye. I think it was week 6. They came out of the bye, played at San Francisco. So that's a big game, good team coming out of a bye. Obviously, San Francisco was banged up because they're always banged up. They didn't have Christian McCaffrey last year for that game. Didn't have Talanoa Hufanga for that game. They were beat up. Chiefs went on the road and won 28-18. Patrick Mahomes rushed for a touchdown. Kareem Hunt ran for 2 scores. Mecole Hardman ran for a touchdown. All 4 scores on the ground in that game. And the Chiefs defense intercepted Brock Purdy 3 times. And it was a game that the Chiefs really controlled for the better part of it. That was the game, if you remember any one thing specifically from that game, it was probably the play where Mahomes ran for the touchdown and he bullied Malik Mustafa, who's built like a house. And Mahomes dipped the shoulder and just rocked Mustafa's world right at the goal line. And then kind of stood over him and flexed a little bit after the touchdown. Very cool moment. A signature Patrick Mahomes moment. So that was 2024 out of the bye, they won. 2023 out of the bye, they lost. That was the Super Bowl rematch that they lost to the Eagles at home 21-17. And it's worse than that. They blew a 17-7 halftime lead that night. That was Monday Night Football. So they had even an extra day out of the bye. They had a bye plus a day to prepare for the Super Bowl rematch. They were up 17-7, and then they didn't do squat in the second half on offense. Now, maybe if Marquez Valdes-Scantling catches that deep ball in the final drive of one of the final meaningful drives of the game for the Chiefs, maybe we're singing a different tune about that game because the defense was terrific. Jalen Hurts really didn't do much of anything. And they held Philadelphia to 21 points. But that game is one of the 4 losses for Andy Reid out of a bye in his career. That was 2 years ago. 3 years ago, 2022. You've probably tried to memory hole this game. Goodness knows I have. This is one of the most unpleasant wins, non-2024 division, because a lot of those were unpleasant wins. But this is one of the more unpleasant wins of the Mahomes-Reid era. Sunday Night Football at home against Malik Willis and the Titans. Y'all remember this game? I hope that you do not. It was disgusting. It was puke. Mahomes led a game-tying drive. The Chiefs were down 17-9, even though other than 2 long Derrick Henry runs, the Titans offense did nothing for 60 minutes. Mahomes had to lead the game-tying drive, had to go for 2 and the tie. There were penalties on 2 of the 2-point tries. So the third try, Mahomes just ran it in himself. And then they won it in overtime. Butker kicked a field goal. And then I think they sacked Willis on 2 of the final 3 plays of the game. They sacked him on second down, sacked him on third down, ended up like 4th and 25 to end the game. And the Titans threw an incomplete pass, and that was it. So the Chiefs won the game. But if you're thinking, oh man, the Chiefs come out looking like a well-oiled machine out of the bye, that would be a data point against, because they were anything but a well-oiled machine. Now, defensively, they played great, though, with Malik Willis having to fill in as the starting quarterback in an injury situation that night, Tennessee was really running a high school offense. So that was 3 years ago. 4 years ago, Chiefs Broncos at Arrowhead. Chiefs won that game 22-9. And whatever you remember about that game, yeah, the final score tells you exactly what kind of game that was. The Chiefs only had 1 offensive touchdown in that game. They got a late pick six from good old Dirty Dan Sorensen. And it was one of those games at the time I remember thinking, and certainly you go back and you look at the box score and you remember it. That was a game where the Chiefs knew they weren't going to lose to the Broncos. It was a pull out just enough to win kind of game. The Chiefs have done that over the years in October and even into November, where, all right, we're going to do what we got to do to win this game and win it comfortably, but we're not going to show our hand here. That was a game where they went in thinking, we got Patrick Mahomes and they got Teddy Bridgewater. We don't need to exert ourselves. So they won that game too. 3 wins in the last 4 coming out of the bye. And to be clear, I think it's going to be 4 and 5 because I think they're going to beat the Broncos, because I just don't think the Broncos are particularly good. There's really only one path for the Broncos to win the game, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But here's the thing that stands out about all 4 of those games. Patrick Mahomes wasn't good. In those 4 games, Mahomes threw for less than 200 yards in 3 of those games. And in 2 of those games, you could argue, really 3 of them, you could argue he flat stunk. Last year against San Francisco, Mahomes was 16 of 27 for 154, was intercepted twice. 2 years ago against Philadelphia, Mahomes was 24 of 43 for 177, did throw for 2 touchdowns, but was also intercepted. 2022 against Tennessee, Mahomes threw for 446 yards. I think the Chiefs had like 20 rushing yards in the game. 446 yards. So Mahomes wasn't terrible. He didn't have a great completion percentage, did throw an interception, 1 touchdown pass, 1 touchdown run that ended up being the tying score. So he wasn't awful in that game, but he wasn't like crisp, I wouldn't say. 20 points in regulation and overtime kind of indicate that. And then in the game against Denver, Mahomes was 15 of 29 for 184, no touchdowns, 1 interception, though he did run for a touchdown in the game. So Mahomes out of a bye the last 4 years, 3 touchdown passes, 5 interceptions. And it just kind of runs counter to the narrative that Andy Reid will have the offense humming coming out of a regular season bye. An extra week to prepare for what they're going to see on defense. They're going to click. They're going to roll. They're going to look great. And that just hasn't been the case in recent years for the Chiefs offense. Now, again, you got to have full context. The 2023 and 2024 offenses around Mahomes weren't particularly good, and they played 2 pretty excellent defenses in those games. San Francisco last year, even with some of the injuries they had, like Nick Bosa played in that game, Fred Warner played in that game. That was pretty good 49er defense. And then 2 years ago against Philadelphia. Even the Tennessee defense in 22 was solid, and the Denver defense in 21, that was a Vic Fangio defense. So it's not like they've come out against Palookas and been unable to move the ball. They played against some pretty good defenses. But the idea that the extra week smooths things out for the Chiefs offense almost feels like the opposite is true based on what we've seen in recent years. And for a Chiefs offense that felt like it was finding some of its best rhythm in recent years before they struggled against Buffalo, I wonder how long it will take for the Chiefs to find some of that offensive rhythm when they play the Broncos on Sunday in Denver. But if that's the bad news, if that's the bit of information that makes you maybe say, that doesn't bode particularly well for Sunday, I want to go back and point to these 4 numbers. 18, 21, 17, 9. That is total points allowed by the Chiefs coming out of the bye week. And these, of course, are all Steve Spagnuolo defenses. Now, again, context is important here. The quarterbacks the Chiefs were playing against, Brock Purdy, Jalen Hurts, Malik Willis, and Teddy Bridgewater. So, not murderer's row, you have to acknowledge. But the Chiefs completely stifled opposing offenses coming out of the bye. So maybe in recent years, The real X factor coming out of a bye for the Chiefs is not so much Andy Reid as it is Steve Spagnuolo. And Spags has had an extra week to watch the film on Bo Nix and Sean Payton's offense and to devise some pressures and some coverages to make a quarterback who really isn't playing in a way that gives you the idea that he feels particularly comfortable right now, even more uncomfortable. That, to me, may prove to be the bigger X factor on Sunday than the Chiefs offense hitting the ground running and hitting fifth gear immediately coming out of a bye. Number one, Denver defense is really good. Number two, they haven't really done that in recent years. That was fascinating to me. I thought I remembered. I certainly remember that they had lost recently out of a bye. It was the Philadelphia game. But for Mahomes to have a negative touchdown to interception ratio in the last 4 games coming out of a bye, fascinating to me. Now, again, one last bit of context. That is a small sample size. Mahomes was really, really good against the Raiders in the game out of the bye in 2020. That was obviously a different Chiefs offense, but he was really good. It's not Mahomes takes the week off and pounds Coors Light and goes and watches his alma mater and doesn't look at his playbook for 2 weeks. That is not the insinuation. He did go watch his alma mater, and I bet he had a Coors Light or two. I bet he allowed himself a beverage. But I just think that's really interesting. And I think that means that the Chiefs defense is going to be maybe the side of the ball that we should expect to be in top form on Sunday against the Broncos. Because if it is, we know that Broncos offense struggles to score against even some mediocre defenses. Mahomes and company won't need to score a ton of points to win. We'll take a short break. I got another Chiefs thought about the offensive line coming up here in just a little bit. We're going to talk about that awful Monday Night Football game last night. So a lot of football this hour. We got some Jayhawks to talk about later on. Michael Swain is our guest joining us for Jayhawk Weekly, bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. We're going to have some fun today on this Tuesday. So glad you're along for the ride here on 580 Sports Talk. 3:32. We're just getting started here on 580 Sports Talk on this Tuesday. Thanks for being here. Talking some Chiefs to start the program. Paul in the YouTube comments says, can't wait for Denver to come out, drop 30 on us. Broncos defense always gives us fits, shaping up to be a horrid trap game for the Chiefs. I don't know that Denver's really capable of putting up 30 on a defense with a pulse. They have exceeded 30 points twice. Once was that goofy fourth quarter against the Giants, and once was against Cowboys. I think the Chiefs have better defenses than both of those teams. I think they have a better defense than the Bengals, who the Broncos scored 28 against back in week 4. I think they have a better defense than the Raiders, who held the Chiefs or held the Broncos to 220 yards last Thursday. Unless you're a big subscriber to the theory that, well, Sean Payton didn't want to. And it's a little ironic, right? Because I think that is true 100% about the Chiefs and how they play against the Bills. Maybe there's some truth to the idea that Sean Payton didn't want to play all his cards going into the Chiefs game, knowing how important that game was going to be. So he held some things back against the Raiders. But then again, they're pretty limited as is. They're limited because they don't have a very accurate quarterback. So a lot of their stuff is short. A lot of their stuff is horizontal in the passing game rather than vertical. And every now and again, they'll take a deep shot and hope Cortland Sutton either wins a jump ball or draws a DPI. So that's kind of how they construct the offense. It's not really a big score offense. I really think if Kansas City doesn't turn it over, I have a hard time seeing Denver scoring a big number. I think 24 is probably certainly a winning number. I think if the Chiefs get to 24, they will definitely win. They might win with 21. They might win with 20. They're definitely going to win with 24. Is kind of how I feel about this matchup. Of course, a lot will depend on the offensive line. And there are two big questions for the offensive line of the Chiefs coming into this week against a Broncos team that has a staggering 46 sacks. I don't need to tell you that's best in the NFL through their first 10 games. Nick Bonito has 9.5. Jonathan Cooper's got 7.5. Zach Allen has 6. Those guys don't really come off the field. But John Franklin Myers is their other starting defensive lineman. He's got 4.5. They send blitzes. Justin Sternad's got 3.5 sacks. Talanoa Hufanga from his safety spot's got a pair of sacks. They come from all over. A really, really good pass rush. Really, really good up front. So this is a big test for this Chiefs offensive line. So these are the two big questions. Obviously, number one, does Josh Simmons play? And Andy Reid, if you heard him yesterday, we played his Zoom press conference from Monday on the show yesterday. He wouldn't commit to returning Josh Simmons to the lineup. And I understand that. I don't know what kind of physical shape that Simmons is in after his month-long hiatus from the team. It might not be fair to Simmons to throw him back out there against either Bonito or Cooper, who have been unbelievable this year. Maybe that's putting a guy in a bad spot, and you'd rather have somebody out there who's been in a rhythm of playing every week at left tackle like Jalen Moore and ease Simmons back in. The flip side of that is Simmons is better than Moore. And everybody had a bye last week, so you could argue nobody's really in the rhythm of playing. If Simmons has been in the building for 2 weeks getting the reps, I'll take the upside. And if he's having trouble keeping up, you can make a short-term switch, but I think you got to go with the higher upside performer there at left tackle. The other question, was the Buffalo game an anomaly for this Chiefs offensive line? Because Moore didn't play well. Moore, really, it's kind of been diminishing returns for him at left tackle. His first couple of games were very good. His next couple of games, kind of so-so. He was bad against the Bills. Juwan Taylor wasn't good and got dinged. Trey Smith playing through some pain was not his best. And Kingsley Suamataia went down for a stretch of that game. In the fourth quarter, the Chiefs had 4 backups playing on the offensive line. And I don't care what defensive line you're playing against. That's a bad scenario. That's less than ideal. But was that performance an anomaly? Can the Chiefs be better coming off of the bye? We're going to learn a lot from the participation report tomorrow. We'll see the first one of the week tomorrow. And we'll see if guys are full participants. We'll see if guys are still receiving treatment. Just kind of see where everybody's at. Like, I would expect Jawan Taylor to maybe be on the list because he's been on the list, I think, just about every week. Trey Smith might end up on the list because he's receiving some treatment. But if any of those guys are off the list, that'd be great news. If Kingsley's not on the list, that would be great news. Chiefs need that offensive line to play well. And frankly, they need to put Patrick Mahomes in better scenarios too, because I think that was part of the problem. More than the difficulties that the offensive line had, it was Patrick Mahomes was holding the ball forever and a day, trying to make the big play down the field. Credit the Bills defensively on the back end. They had great coverage. They played more dime defense than they ever have in a game under Sean McDermott. So that was something new, something a little bit unexpected, a wrinkle that maybe threw a wrench into what the Chiefs plan to do. But I think that for the passing game, the quick game has to make a comeback. Chiefs are going to have to do some getting the ball out quick, some, what do you call them, long handoffs, screen passes, those kinds of things, maybe the RPO game a little bit, and move the ball down the field 5-6 yards at a time. And Mahomes has been willing to do that against outstanding defenses. But also, Mahomes got to run in this game. Remember, didn't really run. Scrambled, but not like down the field. It was a lot of horizontal scrambling for Mahomes. It was not a lot of, all right, nothing's there. I'm going to go get what I can. I'm going to go take some hits and get what I can. He didn't really do that against the Bills, similarly to last year's regular season meeting where he didn't at all run the ball against the Bills 2 years ago. He's going to have the willingness, I think, to run the ball against the Broncos, and I think he will. I think the approach for the Chiefs will be much different. And I think that they will prioritize, particularly early in the game, getting the ball out quick, making those pass rushers second guess. And, oh, man, would it help them to get out to an early lead? Because then you can start to do even more of that screen game, play action, pop passes, jet sweeps, the kinds of things where if Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper and Zach Allen want to pin their ears back and come into the backfield, you can burn them. And the Chiefs have done this to good fronts. They have done this to good pass rushing teams in the past. But the offensive line's got to hold up to make all that work. I suspect they will be better. They will be healthier. They will be more rested. And I think they will be better than they were against Buffalo as a result. We'll take another time out here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, I hope you didn't watch Monday Night Football last night. That stunk. We'll talk about that next as the top of the NFL picture continues to be about as clear as mud. Coming up on 580 Sports Talk. 343 on 580 Sports Talk. Text from the 785. I believe the Chiefs will get to 30 points. They wiped out the Raiders, put 31 on them, and the Broncos only beat the Raiders in Denver 10-7. I'm wary of the transitive property. It's only but so valuable, but yeah, I think that there is a version of Sunday's game. The Chiefs show up in Terminator mode, which we've seen them in the biggest games, like the must-win games they played this year. Think about that. Think about the games that they have had to win. And you can argue whether or not Buffalo was one of those games. But they were 0-2 going to the Giants, and they hit Terminator mode in the second half. They hit Terminator mode against the Ravens. They hit Terminator mode against the Lions. This is a must-win game for the Chiefs. And they get in a must-win mode that we've seen it over and over and over again. Setting aside whether the Broncos are actually good, like I think their pass rush is actually good. I think their secondary, when Patrick Surtain is healthy, is actually good. Although he will not play on Sunday, still on injured reserve. I think they have some run game scheme behind their offensive line that is actually good at times. I do not think their quarterback is good. And I think if you get out to a lead and you force them to play from behind, they're in a lot of trouble. And regardless of what we think of the Broncos, the standings think they're 8-2 and 2.5 games up on the Chiefs. So I think this will be a very serious Chiefs effort on Sunday. And those things tend to result in Chiefs victories. Monday Night Football last night was revolting. Nothing at halftime is usually a sign. Like sometimes, this is a good old-fashioned defensive struggle. No, man, that's not what that was. That's not what that was last night. The Eagles won the game 10-7. I have no earthly idea what to make of the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love is good. I think Jordan Love has a bit of risk taker in him that a lot of other quarterbacks with his gifts, Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen included, have kind of had beaten out of them over the years. Not beaten, that's kind of severe to say, but you get what I mean, right? Like the idea of the evolution of the most talented quarterbacks in the league from guys who think they can make every throw and sometimes get burned trying to do that, to guys who understand what the right play is, and their gifts manifest themselves in making the right play over and over again. That's what Tom Brady's ultimate. That's why he was so great for so long. He just did the right thing over and over and over and over again. And Mahomes has been great even as the talent level of the offense has dropped around him because he can do the right thing over and over and over and over again. It's not those 30-yard cross-field bombs that make a great quarterback. Those are the things that if you can do it, that shows you have the special talent. But the real greatness is in, can you take 6 yards on first down? Can you zip it in for a 7-yard completion on second down and 4? Can you keep the chains moving on third down reliably? Jordan Love's not there yet. I think Jordan Love manifestly is one of the most talented quarterbacks in the NFL. I don't think he's there yet. And sometimes you don't get there. Sometimes you're not in an atmosphere where you get there, an environment where you get there. Obviously, that's a limited, a more limited talent in the skill positions around him. No Tucker Kraft. But I like him. I still like him. I'd still lean towards Jordan Love is going to put it together at some point because the high-end stuff is there. It's just learning how to be boring. Let me put it that way. The great quarterbacks are capable of being exciting, but learn how to be boring. If that makes sense. That's how I'll put it. That's the adage that I'll go with. The capability of excitement, but the understanding of when boring is required, the ability to be boring. And I don't think Jordan Love has learned how to be boring yet. Boring would have gone a long way for them because they just struggled to move the ball in fits and starts. Then they had that fourth down run that didn't work on their final meaningful drive that everybody knew was coming, to the point where the Eagles were all calling it out on defense. You could hear it on the broadcast. They were calling out inside zone. But then the Eagles, with a chance to put the game away, they go for it on 4th and 6 from midfield, and they have Jalen Hurts throw a bomb to A.J. Brown that falls incomplete with 30-odd seconds left in the game. And I know we just spent a good deal of time on yesterday's program in relation to KU football, talking about how the smart thing to do is go win the game with your offense. And that is usually true. That is almost always true. But when there are 33 seconds and you are at the plus 35-yard line and the other team doesn't have any timeouts and you're up a field goal, that is the point at which the smart thing to do is let your defense win the game. Time is on your side at that point. Go ahead and punt that sucker. Drop it inside the 15. Hang time of a punt, that's going to eat up enough time to where the Packers maybe take over with, 27, 26 seconds left, no timeouts, and they have to go a long way to get into field goal range. Now, they didn't manage to get into reasonable field goal range anyway. Brandon McManus shanked that 64-yarder so bad. It looked like when I try to muscle up on my tee shot on the tee box at a par 5, and I get tight and just yank it into the woods. That's what that looked like on McManus's 64-yard field goal attempt. But no, the play there was not win it with your offense. It usually is the right thing to do, but it was not the play there. And I just think there's mounting evidence. Nick Sirianni's best trait as a coach is having a bunch of good players. It almost feels like that's a plug-and-play job. And maybe I'm being unfair, but I'm having trouble thinking of the coach who would screw up having all that talent on the roster at the same time. Again, maybe I'm being a hater, but I don't think there's a value add there with Nick Sirianni as head coach. Question from the 785. This is a good one on the text line. 785-272-9429 is that number. What was worse from week 10, Monday Night Football or Thursday Night Football? Both were garbage that belongs in the toilet. Terrible games. Both ended 10-7. I will say Thursday Night Football was worse because that was not good teams playing a bad game. Good teams play a bad game. You still get some individual moments of excellence, like Micah Parsons made some great plays. Devontae Smith with that touchdown catch, that awesome spin move Saquon Barkley threw down on the play before that touchdown that helped that helped Philadelphia extend their lead out to 10-0. You still get some of those moments of brilliance when there are like great players on good teams playing in the game. Good teams can play a bad game. When bad teams play a bad game, it is unwatchable. And the Broncos are at least half a bad team or a quarter of a bad team. Whenever they drop back to pass, they're a bad team. Unfortunately, it's a pretty important part of the game. But when they drop back to pass, they are 1/4 of a bad team. And the Raiders are all bad all the time. So, yes, Thursday Night Football, I would say, was worse. Neither game is one I would ever care to watch the highlights of or even think about ever again. So this segment is over. We're going to take a timeout. We'll come back. We're going to wrap up the 3 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk after this. Wrapping up this 3 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. We still got 2 more to go with you today, with you until 6 o'clock. Coming up in the 4 o'clock hour, I want to talk about Kansas football because I thought they'd be in better shape than this heading into their last bye and their final 2 regular season games. But they need to win one of those games at Iowa State and at home against Utah to avoid missing a bowl for a second straight season. And with what's been invested and what's been promised for Kansas football, missing a bowl for a second straight season, not really an acceptable outcome. So the question I think this poses is, has Kansas football maybe bumped its head on a ceiling? And if they have, how do they punch through it? That, I think, is the more interesting question, because I don't think there's an easy answer necessarily to that question. Unless there is an easy answer to the question, and it's just CTC, right? Let's cut the check. Maybe that's the solution. Cut the check. I think they're going to have to cut one check this offseason, especially if they miss a bowl and there's no abiding a third straight missed bowl season. Can they really go into next year with Cole Ballard and Isaiah Marshall at quarterback? Or do they need to CTC, go find themselves a quarterback on the market? We'll discuss that. And we'll get Michael Swain's thoughts on the matter as well. He'll join us at the bottom of the hour. Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. He joins us every Tuesday for Jayhawk Weekly. We'll do that. We'll do a little What Is Wrong With You. Your comments on our YouTube live chat, 580 Sports Talk, the name of the YouTube channel. Hop on in. You can also text the show, 785-272-9429. We're back after the news for 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Hour number 2 of 580 Sports Talk on this wonderful Tuesday afternoon in the capital city of Kansas. I am Dan Lucero. Thanks for hanging out on the sports voice of Kansas. 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on our video streaming channels. You can catch us on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can also find us on Facebook, WIBW News. Again, however you're checking out the show, you're catching it live or you're catching it on delay, whether you're watching the video stream a few hours late or listening to our podcast on our website, 580WIBW.com, or on Spotify, the 580 Sports Talk. We just appreciate you being a part of the audience and hope you enjoyed today's program here for 580 Sports Talk. Text line is open, 785-272-9429. That is 785-272-9429. Can also hit us up in that live chat on our YouTube stream. Again, as we broadcast every day on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, there's a live chat feature if you're watching the program live. You can interact with your hosts. You can interact with your fellow listeners. Have a good time in the live chat. It's always a lively place to be, and appreciate those of you who are in there today and every day. And look forward to hearing from more of you who hop in and say hello on the live chat on our YouTube stream. Again, name of the channel is 580 Sports Talk. And go subscribe today. Get us closer to our stretch goal of 900 subscribers, at which point we will all sing for you. By we will all, it's just me today. Spencer Dupuis is going to be in a little bit for What Is Wrong With You, and Brendan Dworzinski, who is off today. We will all congregate under the same roof, behind the same microphone, and we will do 580 Sports Talk karaoke when we get to 900 subscribers. And we are men of our word. We promised an arm wrestling match between myself and Brendan when we got to 800 subscribers. The evidence is on our YouTube stream, our YouTube page, 580 Sports Talk. So we will keep our word. You get us to 900 subscribers. You go subscribe today, get us closer to that goal, and ultimately we're going to sing. And like I said, I'm already resigned to my fate. Like, I don't know. We're going to take submissions, and we'll see what Spencer and Brennan are going to end up singing. But I am resigned to my fate that I'm going to have to end up singing My Maria by Brooks and Dunn, which, if you've listened to this show for long enough, you know this. And if you're new to the show, you may not know this. I hate that song. That is my least favorite song, My Maria by Brooks and Dunn. I hate it with the glowing, sizzling fury of 1,000 hibachis. I hate that song, which is why y'all are going to make me sing it. Like, I just understand that, though, that's how these things work. The more I egg you on, the more you will throw it back in my face. So I am practicing my vocal range. I'm already getting warmed up. I got to get that. I got to get into that upper range, that high octave on the Maria on the chorus. I'm not there yet. It's almost a falsetto, really, at that point. But I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. And you're going to hear me do. Christopher in the YouTube comments suggests that I try the original version of the song, which, first of all, I did not know there was an original version of the song. Shout out to B.W. Stevenson. But second of all, I think people want to hear me do the Brooks and Dunn version as much as I've crapped on it over the years. So that's who I will be singing along with. I will be both Brooks and Dunn. Is that how that works? Do they both do vocals on the song? Is just one of them is there's one vocalist and one guitarist? I'm not a country music guy, so I genuinely don't know if Kix Brooks is just the vocalist, or if, I don't know Dunn's name, Brooks Dunn. That'd be funny. I don't know who does the vocals or if they share the vocals. I'm just going to give you my best when that time comes. So go subscribe. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Coming up this hour, as I mentioned, we got What Is Wrong With You? 2 new stories today, trying to take down the police chief who got busted trying to pay for it. Pay for what? Pay for it. You know what it is. Kind of thing that's illegal to pay for. No, I don't mean drugs. That other thing that's illegal to pay for. That's our current champion on What Is Wrong With You. I really like my story today. We'll see what Spencer brings to the table. That's coming up in a little while. Also, in about half an hour or so, a little less than half an hour or so, bottom of the hour, Michael Swain of Fog.net will join us for Jayhawk Weekly. We'll get Michael's thoughts on where KU football and basketball stand after losses in their most recent games. KU plays tonight. I'm trying to remember what directional university. It's Texas A&M Corpus Christi that they play tonight. Texas A&M Corpus Christi are the Islanders? Yes, they're the Islanders. Had to double check, but yes. Texas A&M Corpus Christi Islanders, who last met back in 2010 at Allen Fieldhouse. So we'll get a preview of that with Michael, and we'll talk some KU football as well. KU, of course, going into a bye week this week before they go to Ames next Saturday. And we will start there with Kansas football coming out of the West Virginia game. And now, look, obviously, in retrospect, that was a bad West Virginia team. They hadn't settled on their quarterback yet. That was the opportune time to be playing West Virginia. I don't think you want to be playing West Virginia. If they're winning your final three games, Rich Rod's got his quarterback, the fabulously named Scotty Fox. The fantastic Mr. Fox is doing some things for West Virginia. And I don't think you want to play them. They might ruin your day if you run into them in the final 3 weeks of your Big 12 schedule. But early in the year, they were a hot mess. They looked Oklahoma State bad. And Kansas bludgeoned them at the booth, just wiped the turf with them for 60 minutes. And I was at that game, and I came away from that game feeling like, okay, maybe KU is a real dark horse Big 12 contender. Maybe the ceiling for this program is attainable, because you always think about range of outcomes when you're looking ahead to a season to come, and felt like the range of outcomes for KU on the low end, maybe they could miss a bowl, but probably would make a bowl, probably 6-6 on the low end. Then on the high end, you were thinking maybe 8 wins, maybe 9 if everything breaks right, because on paper, the KU schedule did not look to be particularly daunting. Who knew that the game against Cincinnati was going to be such a struggle? Because going into the year, I don't think anybody expected Cincinnati to be one of the top teams in the Big 12 conference. That was a home game. And KU should have won it. And they had a lead in the final minute in the fourth quarter. And they didn't win, just like the Arizona game on Saturday. And it is the recurring theme for the Jayhawks, really going all the way back to 2023. They have 14 losses since they beat Oklahoma in 2023. And that was supposed to be like, that's the we are back win for the Jayhawks. That was throwing down a marker that day when Jason Bean, who was not good for the better part of the first 3 quarters of that game, led a fourth quarter comeback and led the Jayhawks to a win in Lawrence over a ranked Oklahoma team in 2023. That win was supposed to represent a pivot point for Kansas football and represent a level up for the program, a step up to the next tier, if you will. Kansas has lost 14 games since then. And in 9 of those games, they have led in the fourth quarter. And you can look at that 2 ways, right? You can look at that as they're good enough to be leading all of these games in the fourth quarter. All they have to do is be a little sharper, maybe catch a break or 2. Maybe next time they get a fourth quarter lead and a quarterback like Noah Fafita tries to throw a quick out right into the hands of a KU defensive back, let's call him Saeed Gibbs. Maybe next time that's an interception and a pick 6 to seal a game and not something that doinks harmlessly off of Gibbs's face mask. I don't be too hard on Gibbs. That pass came in with some velocity, and Gibbs just didn't get his hands up in time, but should have been a pick 6. You run that play over. I'm sure that's the play that Saeed Gibbs wants back. So that's the one way you can look at it. Like, they're, for the want of some better late game execution, maybe KU is in the thick of it this year. If they'd closed out the Cincinnati game and they'd closed out the Arizona game, they'd be sitting on 7-3. They'd be sitting on 5-2 in the league with 2 games left. And 5-2, you'd have an outside chance at reaching the conference championship game. You would still have those hopes alive today if you were Kansas, and you had closed out 2 games that you led in the final minute. Both games, both instances, KU had leads in the final minute and gave up a touchdown to lose. All you got to do, keep the other team out of the end zone. Win those games. And there are pivot points up and down both of those games that if they had gone differently, maybe KU wins. Maybe they win handily. So being in position to win this often, obviously, that's a step forward from where things started in the Lance Leipold era. But there hasn't been that next step forward. Does it represent a temporary plateau, or does it represent a ceiling for Kansas football? Here's the argument in favor of this being a plateau. Kansas might have just run into an in-between year this year because they're very young on defense. They're going to have a lot of these really talented guys back for another year or two. A lot of the guys in the secondary that have flashed are underclassmen. Leroy Harris, who had that pick 6 that didn't stand because of a ticky-tack holding call completely away from the play at the end of the first half. And look, I understand you got to throw the flag. You don't know that that's not going to be part of the play as it's happening. You see the contact, you got to throw the flag. I've seen worse not called, but I understand that it's not one of those things that you can say, oh, this doesn't affect the play, got to pick up the flag. No, that's not how it works. Bad break. But like Leroy Harris is going to be a pillar on this defensive line moving forward. They got some young talent, all 3 levels to be excited about on defense. But are they a little in between where the defense was too young and too inconsistent to match up with an offense that has proven to be explosive and proven to be able to put up enough points to win some of the games that have gotten away from them? Or is it even more stratified than that in terms of it being an in-between year where KU has the veteran skill position talent, senior quarterback, 6-year senior quarterback, senior running back Daniel Highshaw, but not enough stability on the offensive line where the starters who departed last season were a little bit more missed this season than maybe we anticipated. So was this just kind of an in-between year where they were too young in some important spots to bolster where you were experienced? Or is this just kind of the best it's going to get for Kansas? Or that we've maybe already seen the best it's going to get under Lance Leipold? I don't necessarily know that that's true. I would tend to argue plateau over ceiling. And there is statistical evidence that backs this up. We're going to talk to Michael Swain again here in about 20 minutes from fog.net, covers Kansas Jayhawks. He's our Jayhawk insider, Jayhawk Weekly. And he put these stats out on X earlier today, and I thought this was fascinating. 2023 and 2024, the Kansas offense was one of the best nationally in some pretty important statistics. We talk about EPA per play a lot around here, expected points added per play. KU, for 3 years running, had a top 10 EPA per play offense nationally. They were 5th in the country in 2022, 7th in 23, 8th in 24. And the last 2 years, they also had a top 10 offense nationally in success rate. How often do you run a successful play? They were 10th nationally 2 years ago, 9th nationally last year. This year, they are 35th in the country in EPA per play. They are 40th in the country in success rate. So with the eye test, when you see Daniel Highshaw running through faces, or LaShawn Williams making guys miss, or JD ripping long balls to Emmanuel Henderson, it feels like KU has a good offense, but it's not been a real consistent offense. It has not been an offense that has sustained itself into the second half of games very well. That's obviously not ideal when you're trying to close out games and you can't score in the second half. You can't go get touchdowns in the second half. They didn't score any touchdowns in the second half against Arizona, scored 3 points. They didn't score any touchdowns in the second half of the Sunflower Showdown. They scored just 3 points. Those are problems. So this offense, the numbers don't lie, it's taking a step back this year in some of the important metrics that measure consistency, success, explosiveness. Hasn't been there this season. Despite having a 6th-year senior quarterback in Jalen Daniels. And that's not me ripping Jalen Daniels. I think Jalen's had a good year. I think he's played some great games. I think he's made some unbelievable plays. But the whole of the offense doesn't feel like it's matched the sum of the parts this season for Kansas. And when you have a 6-year senior quarterback, when you go through the effort to keep that guy in your program, to keep that guy in your building, outlay the NIL money to make sure that he comes back and feels welcome, you got to win with that guy. The expectation should have been higher than this for Kansas football, even with the consideration of the youth on defense, the inexperience on the offensive line. The quarterback is supposed to be the guy that makes that all better. That's what the money is for. And Daniels' performance has been good, but it still has to fall in the realm of disappointment because they haven't won games and they haven't been as good as they were in previous seasons. Not even as good as they were last year. So that then begs the question, because what if Kansas misses a bowl? What if they lose out? They end up going 5-7 and they don't go to a bowl for a second straight year. That's an entirely possible outcome. A texter from the 785 points out Lance Leipold owns Matt Campbell. So some confidence going into the Iowa State matchup. That is true. Brendan has pointed out repeatedly there's a bit of a rock, paper, scissors thing happening between Iowa State, K-State, and KU football, where Chris Kleiman can't beat Matt Campbell, who can't beat Lance Leipold, who can't beat Chris Kleiman. Like, there is some truth to that. So you feel good, and Iowa State is certainly not unbeatable. But if it's a close game in the fourth quarter, which team do you trust to make the plays to go win the game? Hey, it's Iowa State. Like, you don't think twice about that, right? So that's going to be tough. And then Utah, a team that should be much better than KU in the trenches, comes to the booth for the regular season finale on Black Friday. Now, that could be desperation mode, Jayhawks, if they lose in Ames. And maybe that brings the best out of Daniels and everybody else, and they go and they win that game. It's a home game. It's winnable. Like, they could win both of those games and finish 7-5, and you feel like, all right, they're back on a good trajectory. But right now they feel like a 5-5 football team. They feel very 5-5. And I think that alone, the fact that we're here, represents a disappointment relative to how they started this season, relative to what it maybe should have been with a veteran quarterback like this. I get a text from the 615. My boss is a K-State guy, thinks Jalen Daniels is the college equivalent of Lamar Jackson. See, I don't know if your boss means that as a compliment or means that in a derogatory way. If I were to compare somebody to Lamar Jackson, I would be saying, that guy's awesome. I love Lamar Jackson. Maybe it's a comparison for the sake of not able to win the important game or not able to close games, which that is a knock on Lamar Jackson. I would understand if you were feeling less than charitable, you make that comparison that way. Texter also says, I think Isaiah Marshall will be good. And I want to double back to that real quick. I kind of alluded to that at the end of the last hour. So you've got Isaiah Marshall in the program. You've got Cole Ballard in the program. You've got the other quarterback that they brought in, whose name is totally eluding me, and I am going to make sure that I find that player's name They brought him in from, where is he from? Oklahoma. David McComb. There it is. David McComb. So there's going to be some competition for who replaces Jalen Daniels over the long haul. But if you miss a bowl 2 years in a row, if you're Lance Leipold, it can't be 3, right? It can't be. So do you go out and you find some experience at quarterback in the transfer portal? Do you go and you try and go portaling for your starting quarterback next year? Because this is a program, Kansas, that has done really well to retain players and keep them out of the portal. But they've not gone out and made the big portal splash, like the headline move to bring a player in from the portal. Might they have to think about doing that at quarterback next year to then match up some experience at that position with an offensive line that should be a year better, a defense that should be a year better? Another question perhaps for another day. But we'll take a time out here, come back with What is Wrong with You on 580 Sports Talk. So what is wrong with you time? 2 new stories competing today, and we need 2 storytellers, so we welcome in Spencer Dupuis. Spencer, how was Manhattan? You were at what today? Grass and Grain today?
Yeah, the Grass and Grains Expo show out there at the Army National Guard Armory.
Okay.
Which very easy to get to. It's right near show favorite Raising Cane's.
Hey, there you go.
So do you know what I had?
Raising Cane's.
Raising Cane's.
That box combo probably hit like listed after all that time. Yep.
And so I pulled up and I was like, there's a ton of people in the drive-thru. Hopefully no one's inside. No one was inside. I walked up, ordered, didn't even finish getting my drink, and the box combo was ready.
Nice. Gotta love that. Gotta love good service. All right, we got 2 new stories today. Yesterday's winner, I called it Why Must I Chase the Cat? Because it was the Cheshire, Massachusetts chief of police who was charged with soliciting sex. got caught up in an undercover sting being run by the Massachusetts State Police. Bad move. He's not the chief of the Cheshire Police Department anymore. 2 new stories today. Spencer, I'm going to let you go first. What you got?
Yeah, my story is pretty cut and dry and pretty quick to go through here. We're in a Fort Wayne, Indiana, except for the guy is a 25-year-old Florida man. He
Can take the man out of Florida, but you can't take the Florida out of the man.
He is doing the illegal thing while carrying illegal things.
Yeah, so bad move.
He's facing charges after Fort Wayne police found about 66 pounds of cocaine during the traffic stop. Jordan Lehner is charged with dealing in cocaine, a felony that carries a prison sentence of up to 30 years potentially. He appeared in court on Monday for the first time in the charge. Uniform Narcotics Division detectives pulled him over for allegedly speeding last Thursday, a spokesman for the Fort Wayne Police Department says. During the stop, a department canine did an open-air sniff and alerted of the presence of narcotics. When police inspected his trunk, they located a compartment. The spokesman says after removing the access panel, police allegedly located 30 individually packaged kilos of cocaine, which has a street value of between $600,000 to $800,000.
It's a lot of coke.
Yeah,
man. You got to know if you're moving that much weight, you got to go like 64 in that 65.
You got to hit cruise control on the speed that is on the sign.
100%, man. Stay in that right lane, bob along at exactly that. Maybe 66. Maybe going below the speed limit would arouse suspicion. Maybe go 66 or 60. Keep up with that flow of traffic. Do not call attention to yourself when there is something in your car you do not want attention called to.
Yep.
Generally good advice. For my story, we're going to Lebanon, Missouri. Is it Lebanon or is it Lebanon, Missouri? They have a Lebanon in Indiana. It's spelled like the country Lebanon, but they pronounce it Lebanon in Indiana. I don't know how they pronounce it in Missouri, so my mistake if I'm getting that wrong. But we have one woman charged following a Friday night disturbance in the county, a physical disturbance that occurred at a laundromat across from Lebanon High School. Cade Nunn was accused of organizing and encouraging a fight between 2 juveniles who allegedly had an ongoing dispute. Court documents state the victim had been at a Friday night football game when they received a message to come to the laundromat to, quote, talk about the beef between them and the other juvenile. They claimed to police that upon arrival, they saw a large group with their phones out to record before they were pushed toward another juvenile who started assaulting them. They attempted to fight back before they were able to get away, go back to the school, and contact their parents. The victim was later treated at a local hospital for their injuries. Nunn claimed the minor who was assaulted was bullying and had another juvenile reach out to them to arrange a meetup to put an end to their argument. Documents show that Nunn asked the victim if their parents knew where they were and if they were okay with the arrangement, to which the victim said no, their parents didn't know, and no, they would probably not be okay with the setup. Video observed by police allegedly showed the woman encouraging the fight, instructing a group of juveniles not to call the police, and noted that Nunn and another adult male could also be heard in the video telling one of the minors to, quote, kick their ass. When asked why she arranged the fight, she claimed it was bound to happen eventually and was present to make sure it was done safely. This woman thinks she's Don King, the fight promoter parent. Come one, come all, to see the clash of the cleaners. Like, it's the same lame excuse parents like, well, kids are going to drink anyway, so they may as well just have a whole handle of vodka to themselves in their basement while I'm at home. Like, no! You don't encourage the behavior. Yeah. You don't just say, well, kids will be kids. No! Not how it works. I think that wins today. Yeah. I actually think it might win the week.
I think it does, too.
The idea that she essentially promoted the fight. She booked a fight between juveniles, and she brought an audience to record the whole thing. She thinks she's Bob Arum.
She's the promoter.
Dana White, Don King. What is she doing? Outrageous. That's going to be our winner. The fight promoter parent, the clash of the cleaners. That is our new winner on What Is Wrong With You. Michael Swain joins us next for Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk.
JTV, Jewelry Television, with 80,000 jewelry looks.
We are joined on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline by Michael Swain of Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. This is Jayhawk Weekly on 580 Sports Talk. We do it every Tuesday at this time. Michael covers KU athletics at Fog.net. Become a VIP subscriber over at 24/7 Sports. Get access to all of his outstanding work and information. Michael, our guy Brendan Dworzinski said that the KU loss at Arizona on Saturday is the worst one of the Lance Leipold era. Is that an overreaction, or does this one really sting in particular?
It depends on what type of scale you're talking about. If you want to talk about, like, in terms of frustrating, KU being in a strong position and losing, like, I certainly can argue that. I think the worst loss of the Leipold era right now is the K-State game a couple weeks ago. Just in terms of what that game means and the performance KU put up there. But I'll tell you what, it says something about the last 12, 13 months for KU that I can make an argument that the UNLV game last year was worse or more frustrating than maybe even the Arizona game. Or you talk about West Virginia last year. Like, the fact that off the top of my head, I can think of some other ones that are of similar veins to this Arizona defeat tells you a lot about what the last kind of year and a half has been like for this KU program. So I think I understand where it comes from, right? You look at KU being on the cusp of bowl eligibility. You can look at one decision setting up the rest of the game, not necessarily determining the game, because KU's defense still could have gotten a stop after that fourth down. But yeah, like, I understand the frustration and where it comes from, just considering the context of this season, that game, the way it went, and what it means.
Has KU football plateaued under Lance Leipold, or have they maybe met their ceiling a little bit, where this is maybe 5, 6, 7 wins is about as good as they can expect it to be year over year? Or is it one of those, or do you feel like this is just sort of a plateau that they need to figure out how to kick their way through?
Yeah, well, I certainly don't think it's ceiling. You know, the fact that KU's in, what is it, the last 14 losses KU's had, they've had fourth quarter leads in 9 of them. Like, you flip half of those games, or even let's just say 4, 2 last year, 2 this year. You're talking about 7-5 last year and being, a 7-win team right now with 2 games to play. So I certainly don't agree with the thought that this is KU's ceiling. I think that you can say that this program has had a plateau, and it's different, right? I think you can look at the 2023 year, the way things went, the games KU won, what they returned last season, the disappointment there, and then to return Jalen and to go into the portal, add what KU did, and especially on the defensive side of the ball, where I think you can go position by position and say, outside of cornerback, this defense is as talented as any defense KU's had under Leipold. And you could put that all together and look at what has happened this year and say, yeah, it is a plateau. Because I think, look, KU will argue, or Leipold will argue, they can go and win the last 2 games. I don't see KU beating Utah. And so you're looking at needing to beat Iowa State on the road to go 6-6. And I think at the start of the season, if you would have said 6-6, I think a lot of fans would be like, okay, yeah, I think we take that. But I think it's the manner in which you get to that 6-6 that influences opinion. If KU had maybe been a little bit more, just had some of these games go differently, where you're not blowing fourth quarter leads, I think you could have a different feeling about it. But I think at the end of the day, you're looking at the potential of Kansas going 5-7, 5-7, which 6 years ago, oh man, damn. Well, a lot of KU fans would have taken that. But now it's different because of the way that 23 went, and then what happened last year, where you look ahead to the future, and if KU does not make a bowl game this year, there could be a 3-year run where KU doesn't make a bowl game. And after 2023 and the way things looked then, and saying that now, that's disappointing. So yeah, I think the argument of plateau is certainly there. I think that it's a program that's going to have a rebuilding year next year. And then you're looking at 27 saying, is that the year when you can kind of get back and have maybe a little bit more of that upward trajectory again?
Can you afford a rebuilding year with 2 consecutive missed bowl seasons, though? If they don't make a bowl, if they lose out and end up at 5-7, does that put added pressure on them to not have a rebuilding year in 26?
Well, they can try all they want, But I think at the end of the day, you can look at what is going to happen next year. KU's schedule is going to be a lot harder. And you have to factor in that KU's going to have a, 2/3 at best stadium available. And they got to go to London to play Arizona State. Like, there are a lot of factors outside of KU's control next year that do not look great. And so KU also is probably not going to go to the portal to get a quarterback. So that means you're looking at a first-time starter quarterback next year. So I think in terms of, like, perception for the program, like, yeah, I don't, they don't want to have a rebuilding year. But I think just if you're looking at this analytically and purely just as everything on paper, next year is going to be very hard to make a bowl game for KU. And so it's not ideal for the program. And it's why, I wrote this yesterday for our VAPs, like, this end of the season is going to shape kind of this phase of the Leipold era. Because if they miss a bowl game, it's not going to look great. And there's going to be even more restlessness next year. Because even if people understand what is happening, when you get to those fall Saturdays, people are still going to get pissed off when their team loses, you know what I'm saying? So it's one of those where this end to the season is so important to, I think, not set the tone, but I think just kind of just give yourself a little bit of breathing space for next year.
Michael Swain is our guest, joining us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline here on 580 Sports Talk. Michael writes for Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. This is Jayhawk Weekly on the program. We do it every Tuesday. While we're doing sunshine and rainbows, Michael, KU basketball had a double-digit lead at Chapel Hill on Friday night and then turned around and lost by double figures to North Carolina. I don't think there's anything that went wrong Friday night that can't be fixed over time. But what's the thing to you that needs the most immediate course correction if Kansas is going to pick off some quality wins in the non-conference?
Yeah, I would start, and it's going to be such a coach speedy thing, but like the things Kansas can control, it's going to take time for this defense to figure it out, and the way that these guys are all going to play together. Like, it's a very different situation than I think the last 2 years. Like, if you remember, I think 2 years ago maybe it was, when KU had just gotten Hunter Dickinson, like at that point in time, KU had to figure out how to guard around Hunter. Well, I think there's going to be a similar kind of adaptation this year now, where KU is going to have to figure out how all these pieces fit together and then have it come together as a team and a unit. And I think that's what you saw against North Carolina, the fact that, KU's defense is not as connected as it will be in January, right? But what KU can control is its effort on the glass, is its ability to go get 50-50 balls. And those are the things that, Self loves, but it's true. Like, KU allowing 16 offensive rebounds. Like, they can control their effort on the glass and the way they compete and the way they box out. And that's going to be really important if you look at some of these marquee games going ahead where, man, Duke's a big team, not as big as Carolina. But they've got a big team. And so KU's going to need to be good on the glass in that game to get a win. And so I think you can look at it and say, okay, it's going to take the defense time to come together. But KU can be better with the way it operates on the glass. And that's going to be such a huge point of emphasis for KU just because that's a weakness right now. Because you're playing a 6'7" guy at the 4, and you need that player in Trey White to play like he did at Illinois last year, where he was one of the best defensive rebounders by rebound rate in the country. But he did not play like that against North Carolina. So that's what I think needs to be corrected here in the near future.
I think the long-range answer to this question is probably Cole Rosario, but in the short range, in the non-conference in particular, as Rosario, as a true freshman, gets more comfortable and gets more acclimated to the speed and the physicality of college basketball, who does KU need more offense from? Because it can't just be the Bucket Jones show, great as he is. They're going to need somebody else to go with him. Who's got to go with him among the veteran guys on this roster while Cole Rosario comes along?
Well, I'll tell you what, they need more from Flory than they got against Carolina. And he still, I think, has a very specific skill set on the offensive end. Like, he's got a good left hook. That has definitely improved, which is nice to see. But he has to be more consistent. I think, again, that comes down to effort, rim running, stuff like that. And then, honestly, I think it's going to be game-to-game matchup dependent. I think there will be some games where Melvin Council can get downhill and can create his own shot and really, I think, push the pace and be a scoring threat. But I also think there could be some games where maybe the matchup isn't there for him at the guard position, like, it was against Carolina. So he's got to be someone that steps up. And then I think comes back to Trey White. He's got to knock down some threes. I think his shot selection is going to be really important to watch because KU needs him to score, but KU does not need him to, pounding the rock 5 times and then doing a turnaround jumper on the baseline. Like, KU needs good shots from Trey White because he can be an efficient player, but it comes down to playing within the role laid out for him. And I think in his own mind, he'd love to be the number 2 guy on the team. Is he going to be that guy? No. And so I think that's going to be a little mental battle that he's going to have to, kind of go through with himself and the coaching staff, especially in non-conference play. Because if you can get him to a point where, he's a catch and shoot guy from 3, he's a hard off-ball cutter. Trey White can get 3 baskets a game, cutting hard. He can knock down a 3 or 2 per game. Well, all of a sudden you're looking at that and you're saying, man, that's 12 points. Like, you take that every single night from Trey White. So it's one of those things with him specifically. It's going to come down to him buying into the role, being that willing cutter, and then not taking, I think, some of the bad shots where it's a hero ball time. Hey, guys, back off. I got this. And so, long answer, but I think it's going to be a collection of guys. And then once Cole gets into the flow of things, I think he's someone that will, again, provide some of that spark. And I think night to night it's going to change, right? Some nights Melvin's going to be good. Some nights Trey White's going to be good. Some nights it's going to be Cole Rosario. I think it's just going to be one of those by committee things. And just depending on the game, a different guy's going to step up.
Couple more questions for Michael Swain of Fog.net, joining us for Jayhawk Weekly here on 580 Sports Talk. KU's already got a really good basketball recruiting class lined up. They got old Mr. 6'7", Taylon Kinney. They got Luke Barnett, Trent Perry, and Davion Adkins already a part of the class of 2026 as well. Couple of more big fish still in the pond that KU's trying to land. I want to ask about both of them. First, the former Shawnee Mission Northwest Cougar, Ethan Taylor. His commitment is set for this Friday. How's KU looking in that regard?
Yeah, that's not one I don't think KU's really pushing too hard on. I think there was maybe a time where it looked like KU was going to be in position to get him, and I think KU kind of put its chips into the Davion Atkins sweepstakes, and obviously KU won that one out. So I don't think Ethan Taylor will be headed to KU. I think he probably ends up in Michigan State.
Tyron Stokes is another big deal recruit whose anticipated announcement is soon. He's down to Kansas, Kentucky, and Oregon. It's also a bit of off-court controversy. Got kicked out of the school he was at, apparently not with the team there anymore. So what's the situation with Stokes, and how closely should KU fans be watching his commitment?
Yeah, it's one to watch, I would say. But look, let's just take this at face value. Sometimes the simplest thing in recruiting is the truth. He signed a Nike deal, right? He is a Nike athlete. And even if there's language in that contract that allows him to go to an Adidas school, you don't think that's going to happen, And so with Oregon in the picture, if he doesn't end up at Kentucky, it wouldn't shock me at all to go see him, head up to Eugene and, go be one of Phil Knight's guys. And that's something that I don't think they would have, any issues with. And plus, I think at the end of the day, you're looking at this and it's to some degree, it comes down to salary. And can KU get to Stokes' number? Yeah, I think so. But could you envision a world where, at Oregon next year, it's Taj Ariza, Trevor Ariza's son, who's already committed there, and, Tyron Stokes playing together? I definitely could see that. I think Stokes could fit the roster construction, right, for what you're looking at ahead to next year. But it's one of those where, again, sometimes it's just the simplest, answer is the correct one. And he's a Nike athlete, and he's got 2 Nike schools in his top 3, and the one that's not is KU, and it's an Adidas school. So it's worth watching. Crazier things happen in recruiting, but I just looking at the tea leaves, that's not one that I'm thinking he's going to end up at Kansas.
Michael, KU plays Texas A&M Corpus Christi tonight. I'm going to nail you to a prediction here. Who will, presuming Darren Peterson leads Kansas in scoring, which I think is going to be a pretty safe assumption most nights, who will be KU's second leading scorer tonight?
I'd say Flory. Look, I bet it's been a rough couple practices for Flory. I think he's someone that's going to come out with a lot of energy. And we've seen it, right? When Flory plays with energy and he's getting up and down the floor, man, it is hard to guard it. And there are not many teams that can guard it. So I'm expecting a big game from Flory tonight.
Michael Swain will have it covered over at Fog.net, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. If you're a VIP subscriber over there, it is well worth the investment because you get all of Michael's outstanding work and VIP info. He joins us every Tuesday here on the program for Jayhawk Weekly. Michael, it is always a pleasure. We'll do it again next week.
Awesome. Sounds great. Talk to you next week.
That is Michael Swain. We'll take one more time out this hour, come back, wrap up the 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk. .455 on 580 Sports Talk. That means second hour is just about in the books. We got one more to spend together. Looking forward to that. Thanks again to Michael Swain of Fog.net for joining us for Jayhawk Weekly. Great insight, as always, from Michael. KU's got Texas A&M Corpus Christi tonight. The Islanders, again, don't expect that the outcome of that game is going to be in any real doubt, but do want to see that secondary scoring start to gain some confidence. Trey White with confidence, maybe not too much confidence, but confidence in his three-point shot. Melvin Council Jr. gaining some confidence, getting to the rim. Cole Rosario just gaining confidence that he can do it at the college level. All of those things are going to be really, really important because as good as Darren Peterson is, and through 2 games, you can't say he's anything but as advertised. Got to have additional scoring. He can't score 35, 40 every night. Going to have that secondary scoring, particularly to help buttress things as the defense comes along. And I still believe that that will happen because Bill Self always makes that happen. Trust the talent, trust the coach. Usually the way to go when evaluating Kansas basketball during a time of any struggle, whether it's short-term or more prolonged. Coming up at the 5 o'clock hour. 4 o'clock hour is done. 5 o'clock hour. We're going to do our headlines. We got plenty of headlines to get into today. A couple of intriguing Royals headlines to get to. Major League Baseball awards season has begun. Brian Kelly is suing LSU. There are no winners there. We're also going to talk about Jeff Passan of ESPN.com's idea for a perfect move for the Royals this offseason. And I'm going to tell you right now, I love it. I love the idea. And I think the Royals should consider making this move. Also, we always do Random Question Tuesday on a Tuesday, but since it's just me today, we'll turn it into an Ask Me Anything. So get your questions in to me on the text line, 785-272-9429, or the YouTube chat, YouTube 580 Sports Talk. Get your questions into me. We'll do an Ask Me Anything to round out the show today. That's all coming up on the final hour of 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Third and final hour of 580 Sports Talk on this Tuesday afternoon. Thanks so much for hanging out today on the Sports Voice of Kansas. 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com. And, of course, on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and our Facebook page, WIBW News. Great to have you along. My name is Dan Lucero. I am solo for this final hour today. So I want to hear from you. We're going to do a little Ask Me Anything later on this hour. Haven't done one of those in a while. So I felt like today was a good day to do it because it's Tuesday. We usually do Random Question Tuesday. Well, me asking random questions to the ether, I don't know that that makes great radio. But if you guys ask me questions, that can be fun. So I'm outsourcing a little bit of the content to you, the listener, today. We'll be honest about what this is. But looking forward to getting your questions for Ask Me Anything later on in the show. You can text them to 785-272-9429. That is 785-272-9429. Can also interact on the YouTube channel as well. The name of the YouTube channel is 580 Sports Talk. That's real simple to search and find, right? Go on and find it and subscribe to the channel. Get us close to our stretch goal of 900 subscribers. When we get there, we're all going to do karaoke on an episode of 580 Sports Talk. So that'll be a lot of fun. So go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hop into the chat. There's a live chat on the YouTube stream. And hit me up with some questions for Ask Me Anything a little bit later on. Text from 785 says, thanks for being here on a holiday. It is, of course, Veterans Day today. Said this at the top of the show, but you can't say it enough on a day like today. A thank you again to all of those who have served this great nation, whether they were active duty, whether they were on the front lines, whether they were serving in different capacities, all who have served. Thank you so much for your service from the bottom of my heart. Special thank you, of course, to the veterans of my life, my father-in-law, my brother-in-law, both of whom served. Thank you guys for everything that you've done to keep our country safe and free. And I know that you all join me in extending that thanks. And if you have not thanked your veterans, the veterans in your life today, reach out and say thank you. They'll appreciate it. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today. And like I said, I'll answer questions later on in the show. They can be about anything. They can be about sports. They can be about what I'm having for dinner tonight. They can be about, you ask me how my son's doing, whatever you want. I will take your questions in the YouTube chat, 580 Sports Talk, and on the text line, 785-272-9429. But before we get to that, this could be a very Dan final hour of the show. This is what happens when you let me just do my own thing for an hour, because we're going to talk some baseball. The general manager meetings are coming up this week. Most of the front offices have already convened in Las Vegas for the GM meetings. And so that means there could be some action. Could be the start of the hot stove warming a little bit. And with that in mind, ESPN's Jeff Passan put out a list of what he believes to be the perfect offseason moves for all 21 teams who can enter next year and feel like they can contend. So with all due respect to like the Rockies, the Nationals, the Twins, the White Sox, 2/5 of the American League Central. So the Royals really do need to strike while the iron is hot. And there are other teams, probably the Sacramento A's, almost called them Oakland out of habit. But 21 teams on Jeff Passan's list, and a perfect offseason move for each of them. I really like his idea for the Royals. So I want to get around to that in a little bit. We got headlines too. So why don't we start there? Why don't we start with our 580 Sports Talk headlines today? We'll keep it local to start things off. Last night, you heard it right here, 580 WIBW on the K-State Sports Network from Learfield. K-State women's basketball team is 3-0. They beat Lamar last night, 89-61. Taryn Sides leading the way for the Wildcats with 20 points. Isela Arenas had 18 off the bench. Freshman Jordan Spicer had a double-double in her first career start, 11 points and 10 rebounds. I don't know if I've told you guys, I saw Taryn Sides play in high school. I saw her play at Phillipsburg. That was my little 2-year jaunt to Northwest Kansas when I was doing radio and calling high school games in Colby. And the Colby girls played Phillipsburg in the first round of a 3A sub-state. That would have been my last year. So this would have been, I think it was, besides a junior, I guess the years are kind of blurring together. She may have been a junior. But I remember calling that game and feeling like the stats that I was given for her could not possibly be right. Like, that's a misprint. She's not shooting 50% from three. Get out of my face. Nobody shoots 50% from three on volume. That doesn't happen. And then I watched her warm up, and I said, maybe that's low. because I don't think she missed anything in warm-ups. And then she got in the game. It ended up being a really good game. In fact, if I remember right, it went overtime. It was tight to the finish between Colby, who I think was like the 7 seed in the sub-state. It was a good sub-state. And Phillipsburg. I think the game may have even gone to overtime. It came down to the wire either way. And the side struggled early in the game. Didn't really have her shot. Colby's defense was bothering her a little bit, but she got warmed up. And I remember thinking that I felt like she was a major college basketball talent, like good enough to play at the Big 12 level when she committed to Kansas State. She looks like she might be their best player. And just stuffing the stat sheet, doing everything for that team, rebounding, assisting, just doing it all. Been a really impressive start to the year for Terrence Sides. So look forward to seeing how she continues it, because that is not a team right now that has a lot of a in-state presence on the roster, but it's always enjoyable. And this goes for men's basketball, women's basketball. It goes for really all sports. When you have a kid from in-state who's front and center for a good team's efforts, that's always fun. And it looks like Terrence Sides going to be front and center for K-State women's basketball this season. So they won last night. They play Thursday afternoon. Programming note, we are going to be on for only half an hour of 580 Sports Talk on Thursday. I think I still get paid for a full day, but we're going to be on for 30 minutes on Thursday because K-State's running one of those Bramlage Coliseum double headers on Thursday, where the K-State men will play immediately following the K-State women. So the K-State women play South Dakota, and that game tips off at 4:00, which means pregame coverage on the K-State Sports Network from Learfield will start at 3:30, which means we are off the air on 580 Sports Talk at 3:30. And then later that night at 7:00, Kansas State's men play Cal. That's the return game from Jerome Tang's first season at the, it was his first year. That was, I think Naquan Tomlin maybe hit the game-winning shot out there in Berkeley. And K-State plays Cal in men's basketball. That game is scheduled for a 7:00 tip-off. We'll have both games right here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9, of course. Next headline, let's talk some Royals. The Kansas City Royals have hired a new president of business operations. And normally that's the kind of headline that makes my eyes roll in the back of my head, because few things are less interesting to me than what's going on in the business office of the baseball team. But I actually thought there was some really interesting stuff from Ann Rogers' article at MLB.com regarding Cullen Maxey. He is the new president of business operations. They had an introductory press conference for him yesterday. He's going to oversee the business operations after he spent the last 20 years in the Diamondbacks organization. He was their executive vice president of business ops and chief revenue officer for the last 16 years. So Rogers writes, a huge piece of Maxey's responsibility will be in the broadcast side, with teams in the league figuring out what the future of TV deals will look like in baseball. The Royals will again be broadcast by FanDuel Sports Network in 2026, available on cable and satellite packages and the network's direct-to-consumer app, but they'll face the decision again next offseason. So, want to watch the Royals? FanDuel Sports Network is your best bet for 2026. Beyond that, the reason it's Maxey's background is interesting, he comes from Arizona. And if they weren't the first, they were the second team to move their TV rights to a multi-platform distribution managed by Major League Baseball. So there was not a cable home of the Royals or a cable or a network distributor. The Royals managed their distribution and then got it out to different satellite and cable providers in different markets in different ways, while still having the direct-to-consumer pay-per-view models that you might be familiar with if you're subscribed to, I don't know what it's called now that FanDuel has. It was Bally Sports Plus there for a little bit, where you could pay, it was $20 a month, and you were subscribed and you could watch in-market Royals games, even without being a cable or satellite subscriber. So Maxey has been part of a transition to that model, and it's been a really good one for the availability of Diamondbacks games on television. Because right now, you could be a cable subscriber and you might not get, or a satellite subscriber, you may not get FanDuel Sports Network. Yeah, I'm a Cox subscriber and I get that channel, so I can watch the Royals over cable, but you may not be able to. Or you may live in an area where your cable provider doesn't offer it, or your satellite provider doesn't offer that channel. So your options to watch the Royals are either the direct-to-consumer model or nothing. But the way the Diamondbacks have done it, and other organizations have followed in those footsteps, like the Guardians, the Rockies. I think the Padres might have been first. It was either them or Arizona. And it has allowed them to do more over-the-air broadcasting of their games, much like what we saw this past season with the Royals making some of their games available on WIBW TV here in the Topeka market in an agreement with a distributor with Gray Television. So Maxey said in the press conference yesterday, the number one pain point for the Diamondbacks at that time was that our fans couldn't see our games. The opportunity to make that the goal, distribution and reach, has been a tremendous success. We're on linear still, so those who are consuming in that matter can continue to, but now direct to consumer and then testing over the air, those ingredients are here. Rogers writes this: Maxey emphasized that the D-backs shifted their goal from revenue to ease of access for fans. The Royals, John Sherman, the owner, said, agree with that approach. Quote from John Sherman: this is music to my ears to hear this from an owner of a professional sports team. Quote, if we expand our reach and our access, we believe the revenue will take care of itself eventually. What a concept. You make more money when more people invest in your team. You make more money when fans are excited about your team and can see your team and want to then maybe buy tickets or buy merch, or it just expands your revenue opportunities. Not putting the cart before the horse. What a concept. Mind-blowing. Wonderful to hear that from a team owner. It really is. Maybe I'm not cynical enough, but I really, really love hearing that from John Sherman. Maxey added to that, revenues can still grow in other ways, particularly if you are competitive. We are competitive here. So I like that. I like that from the new president of business operations, Cullen Maxey, and from the owner, John Sherman. On the field, Royals made a trade today. This might not be a name that you really need to file away for later, but the Royals did acquire right-handed pitcher Mason Black from the Giants today in exchange for another minor league pitcher, Logan Martin. The Giants had designated Mason Black for assignment last week. The Royals acquiring him means that they will add him to their 40-man roster, which now sits at 37 players. They made a similar move yesterday. Cameron Meisner acquired the outfielder from the Rays, had been designated for assignment because he was no longer wanted on the Rays 40-man roster. The Royals acquired him, added them to theirs. They have an option for that player. They have an option for Mason Black as well. Black turns 26 next month. He was a third-round pick of the Giants in 2021, has pitched 40 and a third big league innings to the tune of a 6.47 earned run average. Decent command, not a big strikeout arm. Did not have a very good year at AAA last season. This is a buy low candidate. And the nice thing about the Royals right now and what they've done and what they've proven they can do, they go out and they pick up a pitcher. You can assume that maybe they see something. and maybe they can get the best out of this guy. And that's not always how it's going to work out, but that's the level of trust I think you can have in the Royals, A, front office, but B, and most germanely here, faith in the process by which they evaluate and coach and develop pitching. That if there is still a productive major league pitcher somewhere in Mason Black, the Royals are as good a bet to get that out of him as any organization in baseball right now, given their track record in the last 2-3 years. So these are minor transactions that may not really rate much more than the small type they used to get in the back of newspapers, back when there were newspapers. And they printed the transactions in the agate type in the back of the newspaper. I remember those days. I miss those days. Anyway, this transaction might not rate much more than that, but again, given the Royals' track record, maybe this is a name to file away. He's got an option for next year. It's probably just a depth move. Again, the Royals are kind of short on AAA pitching depth. They designated Kyle Wright for assignment, so that experiment is over. Alec Marsh is already out for next season. He's going to have surgery. So they need guys who can start at AAA with some big league experience, and Mason Black is that. So that is the reason behind that move. Sticking with baseball, Major League Baseball starting to hand out their awards for 2025. They began last night by announcing the Rookies of the Year. No surprise that the unanimous American League Rookie of the Year, Nick Kurtz of the Sacramento Athletics. He is the second to win unanimous Rookie of the Year. The last one to do that was Mark McGwire back in 1987. It is the 9th time that an A's player has won the Rookie of the Year award, first time since Andrew Bailey in 2009. That might be helpful for your immaculate grid down the road. Kurtz received all 30 of the first place votes. His teammate Jacob Wilson came in second, receiving 23 of the second place votes. Boston's Roman Anthony finished third. Finishing fourth, Noah Cameron of the Kansas City Royals. He got 3 second place votes. And thanks to the Baseball Writers Association of America's accountability, we can tell you that those second place votes came from Ian Harrison of the Associated Press, Jesus Ortiz for Our Esquina in Houston, and Dave Brown, who is one of the 2 designated Kansas City area voters for the award. Vahe Gregorian was the other, for the record. He voted Cameron third on his ballot. Also receiving votes, Colson Montgomery of the White Sox was 5th. Carlos Narvaez of the Red Sox. Jack Leiter of the Rangers. New York's Will Warren. Minnesota's Luke Keeschel, maybe just on the strength of that one big series he had against the Royals. Toronto's Braden Fisher. Chicago's Shane Smith. Houston's Cam Smith. Tampa Bay outfielder Chandler Simpson. Sacramento's Luis Morales, and Jason Dominguez of the Yankees also receiving votes. Over in the National League, it was not unanimous. Drake Baldwin received 21 of the 30 first place votes. The Braves catcher named the Rookie of the Year. He's the 7th catcher to win the award and the 10th Brave to win the award. If you're curious, the Dodgers have 18 Rookies of the Year all time. That's the most. Then the Braves and the Yankees with 10 and the A's with 9. He's first A to win Rookie of the Year since Michael Harris in 2022. Baldwin receiving 21 of the first place votes. Cubs pitcher Cade Horton received the other 9. He finished second. Brewers infielder Caleb Durbin finished third. Brewers outfielder Isaac Collins was 4th. Nationals outfielder Dalen Lyle 5th. Also receiving votes, Miami utility player Agustin Ramirez. Brewers pitcher Chad Patrick, Marlins outfielder Jacob Marcy, Dodgers reliever Jack Dreyer, Cubs third baseman Matt Shaw, All-Star Brewer right-handed pitcher Jacob Mizorowski, Mets hurler Nolan McLean, and Marlins outfielder Heriberto Hernandez. So those are the award winners for the Rookie of the Year. I'm trying to figure out which award comes next. I think it will be Manager of the Year, and I think we will hear those later today. A couple other notes from the wider world of sports. The Dallas Mavericks fired their general manager today, Nico Harrison. Why? What happened? Did something bad happen? Nico Harrison, of course, infamously traded Luka Doncic. And that will be his career epitaph because he ain't never going to run another organization again. The Mavericks were off to a 3-8 start this season. They are in hell, and their fans were chanting, "Fire Nico." They failed to sell out a home game for the first time in 24 years on Saturday, and it was determined that that organization needed to make a change because it's bad when you're the home team and you're shooting free throws and the home crowd is chanting, fire the GM. And that's the point at which you need to fire the GM. The second best time. The first best time would have been before he traded one of the best players in franchise history for the always injured Anthony Davis. It's very funny that that happened. And the arrogance of Nico Harrison when he did it. Luka's fat, out of shape slob. It won't be that big a deal. Plus, Anthony Davis gives us a chance to win now. Well, they're not winning. They didn't win then, and they're not winning now. And sometimes you got to take the sports aspect of it, the production aspect of it out of it, and you got to remember that you're in a people business, and not just the people that are your players, the people that are your customers. And trading Luka Doncic was such a betrayal to everybody who rooted for the Dallas Mavericks that anything short of winning every game in a championship was not going to soothe that hurt. It was always going to be there. So, Nico Harrison, gone. Good riddance. Brian Kelly, also gone from LSU, but he's going to try to make it hurt because he is suing LSU. LSU has claimed in return that they never actually fired Brian Kelly at all. The school is now seeking to fire Kelly for cause and potentially avoid paying the full buyout of nearly $54 million. Brian Kelly's attorneys, plural, of course, billable hours always win here. Those are the only winners here in a dispute between Brian Kelly and LSU football. The only winners are billable hours. Brian Kelly's attorneys say LSU has taken the position that it did not formally terminate Brian Kelly, that it just said, hey, it would be better if you didn't show up for work. And then Brian Kelly's like, all right, bet. I'm not showing up to work. According to the filing, Kelly's lawyers are seeking a declaratory judgment confirming that LSU's termination of Coach Kelly is without cause and that Coach Kelly is entitled to receive the full liquidated damages, the buyout, provided for in his contract. The suit alleges that LSU told Kelly's representatives Monday that Scott Woodard, the then athletic director, did not have the authority to terminate Coach Kelly and or make settlement offers to him, and thus Kelly was never officially terminated. So that's LSU's position. Yeah, man, you just quit showing up. We weren't happy with you, and then you quit coming. And so now we fired you with cause. So expect that fight to go on for a long time. And again, there are no winners in that dispute. We're talking a little baseball when we come back here as we wrap up 580 Sports Talk headlines. Jeff Passan has an idea for the Royals offseason, and I love it. And I'll tell you why next here on 580 WIBW. 531 on 580 Sports Talk. Get your questions in. Ask me anything. That's coming up next segment. I want to hear from you. 785-272-9429 is the number. 785-272-9429. Get your questions in. You can also get them in on the YouTube chat. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. Any question, any topic, sports, not sports, happy to answer. Whatever you got. 785-272-9429 and on the YouTube chat. Jeff Passan of ESPN.com put out an article today with the general manager meetings for Major League Baseball gearing up this week. And he put forth an idea for every team that figures to be active during this upcoming offseason. There's a lot of teams that just aren't going to go out and spend a lot of money or be active or expect to compete, like the Pirates, the Marlins. I mentioned the Rockies, the White Sox. Teams aren't going to go out and do a lot, add to their rosters. That's not the position they're in. But the Royals are in a position to add. And given the state of the American League Central, which the Tigers, if you recall, completely tricked off last season and lost to a Guardians team that was not trying to win. And now we know they're not getting Emmanuel Clase back next year or ever. And are also not a team that projects to go out and make a big free agent or trade splash. You've really got the Tigers as the only other team in the division that's trying right now. The Twins, they don't want to spend any money whatsoever. The White Sox are the White Sox. So it is strike while the iron is hot time for the Kansas City Royals, and I expect that they will. I expect that they'll be active. And we have talked and will continue to talk until they do it ad nauseum about the need to add offense. And the speculation, the expectation is that they'll add an outfield bat because that is where they have the most obvious vacancy. But Jeff Passan's perfect offseason move for the Royals would be adding a bat elsewhere. Quote, the biggest impact could come via what they tried to do last year in trading for Jonathan India. Get a high on-base second baseman who can lead off with professional at-bats, presumably with version 2.0 of the idea working better than the first. Sign free agent second baseman Gleyber Torres. Gleyber Torres spent last year with the Detroit Tigers on a one-year deal. Remember, he signed pretty late. He was sort of left out there, hung out to dry a little bit in the offseason process after spending the first 7 years of his career with the New York Yankees. But Gleyber had a good year in Detroit. Hit .256 with a .358 on base, only a .387 slug. Power's never really been his game, but did hit 16 home runs and 22 doubles, drove in 74 runs, scored 79 at the top of the Detroit order. Career high 85 walks, career high 13.5% walk rate in a full season. He had a higher walk rate than that in the COVID year. And an all-star for the third time in his career, worth between 2.5 to 3 wins above replacement, depending on your preferred calculation. Not a great glove, probably a little below average, but not a butcher at second base. A durable player who has played 158, 154, and 145 games the last 3 seasons. And entering his age 29 campaign, he turns 29 on December 13th of this year. I love this idea. I'm not going to wait for Michael Massey to figure it out. I don't think that's a luxury the Royals have any longer. Maybe there's a space for Massey as a utility bench bat, but I don't think you can go into next year and count on him at second base. And I don't think you can go into next year and count on Jonathan India, because the fact of the matter with Jonathan India, he had the great rookie year in 2019 where the baseballs were Titleist Pro V1s. And he's been progressively less good every year since, culminating with the worst year of his career last year as a Royal. I liked the idea of buying a bounce back year from Jonathan India. I like the idea of buying on what his skill set provides. But the trend line is unmistakable that India has become less and less of an offensive producer as his career has gone on. And I don't want to bet that as he gets closer to his 30s, that's all of a sudden going to tick back up. the steady above average performance of Gleyber Torres, the ability to get on base via the base on balls and be a top of the order hitter in the Royals order, because it's not just the walks. You look at his chase rate, he doesn't chase. He does not swing outside of the strike zone. He takes professional at-bats. Royals need that. The Royals need that presence. I hate giving up on Michael Massey, because I like the concept of the player. Left-handed bat at the position. He's had an above-average glove. It looked like he was trending in a good direction 2 years ago. Then the back injury cropped up, and then last year it was major regression for him, even though he had a good September. I don't think you can afford to go in. You want to go into next year with as few question marks as possible. Because let's be real honest, Jack Caglione is a question mark based on what he did at the major league level. I still believe in Jack Caglione. I believe in the talent. I believe he's mastered AAA, and he's only going to learn and get better at the big league level as he goes. But if that's a question mark for next year, you can't afford a whole lot of others. You want sure things. You want reliable offensive production. Gleyber Torres has given that every step of the way. He's only had 1 year where he was below average as a hitter according to OPS plus. And even that year, 93 OPS plus blows away what the Royals got from Jonathan India last year. I think this is the move. I think they're going to non-tender India. I really do. I think they should. I just non-tender the player. Try and find a trade partner. If you don't find one, non-tender him. And spend a little money and bring Torres in for a couple of years. I like the idea of him at second base. I really do. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We're going to play Ask Me Anything. Bring your questions to the table. Send them in, 785-272-9429, or on the live chat on our YouTube stream, 580 Sports Talk. And I'm going to answer your questions next, so we have a little fun for this version of Random Question Tuesday here on 580 Sports Talk. .540 here on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero hanging out with you for another 20 minutes tonight. So typically, you listen to the show long enough, you know, on Tuesdays we do a segment called Random Question Tuesday. It's kind of a non-starter when you've only got one person in the box, as has been the case today. So instead of doing random questions with the cast of characters here on 580 Sports Talk, I figure I'll let you throw random questions out to me. We call it Ask Me Anything. We do it every now and again. And it's been a while since we've done it, so I'm going to do it today here on 580 Sports Talk. So text your questions to 785-272-9429 or drop them in the YouTube chat. Check out the YouTube stream, 580 Sports Talk, and put your questions in. And I will answer your questions on the program here today. They can be sports related or not sports related. We'll start with the first one I got in. John joining the program. Appreciate John being in the live chat today. He's got a high school football question for me. Can Hayden close the gap with Andale this season? Caveat, I have not seen Andale. I only know Andale by reputation this year, which is they squash people and they're squashing everybody again this year. I think Hayden is really, really good. And I think if Hayden reaches the state final in 3A and plays Andale again, which 3A East is a beast. They got to get through a really good Jeff West team who they've already beaten. They got to get through them again. They're going to be tested. Make no bones about it. They're then either going to play Santa Fe Trail or Holton in a sub-state if they get through Jeff West, and then presumably Andale will be waiting for them in the other side coming out of the West bracket. If Hayden does not beat themselves, they can absolutely beat Andale. They've got to, sometimes they get a little penalty prone. They got to stay away from that. But I really like Hayden's defense. I think they rally to the ball. I think that gives them a chance to slow down Andale's offense to the extent that you can ever slow down Andale's offense. And I think Hayden can close the gap. Like they led, I think, at halftime in the 3A title game last year. So the gap is, I don't think, that big. But I think they can absolutely close it. I think Hayden is a very real threat to bring that state title back after near misses the last 2 years. By the way, I mentioned that Santa Fe Trail Holton game. What a great segue. Little synergy here. That's our 580 Preps game of the week this week. I'm going out to Carbondale. I've never been. I've been to Carbondale. I've driven through Carbondale before. But I've never been to Santa Fe Trail for high school football. We're doing that game this Friday night, Santa Fe Trail and Holton. Not only my first time to Carbondale to see a football game, my first time seeing the Barta Bone in person. Brooks Barta's legendary Holton offense. I can't wait. I'm really excited to bring you that game. Me and Greg Akagi on the call this Friday night right here on 580 WIBW. Our 580 Preps game of the week for the sectional round, 3A East, Santa Fe Trail against Holton. Hope you'll join us Friday night for that. Thanks for the question. Vance in the YouTube comments. Thanksgiving edition. Best Thanksgiving side and dessert. Candied yams. And, for dessert, I'm just going to give you the blanket answer, pie. I can do a pumpkin pie, an apple pie, whatever you got. Like I don't know. We're doing Thanksgiving back in Colorado this year. Going to go back and see my family in the Denver area, and my cousin is going to host with her husband and their new baby. They're going to host Thanksgiving this year. So I don't know what the pie situation is going to be. All I know is I'm gonna have some pie. Whatever you got, cherry, apple, pumpkin, just pie. If that's a cop-out answer, I apologize, but that is my answer. Here's one from Mark H in the YouTube comments. Does your son, what children's programs does your son like to watch? My son is 17 months old. We kind of wish he weren't as into TV as it seems that he is. He's started to beg for the TV to be turned on and throw a tantrum when it gets turned off. But Asher does have his favorites. Sesame Street he likes. Big Elmo fan, really likes Elmo. He will enjoy Blue's Clues. He's started to enjoy that a little bit lately. He likes it when I make the sound that the dog Blue makes. He likes when I go like Blue does. Miss Rachel, the episodes of Miss Rachel that are on Netflix. They have one where they go to the farm. Oh my goodness, Asher will watch that every day if we let him. He's really into like farm and zoo animals right now. So you try to minimize the screen time. I know that's a big deal for a lot of parents. There are some parents out there that are able to adhere to that. My wife and I are not those parents, apparently. He likes those shows. He likes Barney. My wife was really into Barney as a kid. So she's got Asher hip to Barney. I think that show's pretty obnoxious. Baby Bop, the most obnoxious television character in history. The green dinosaur. Oh, just drives me crazy. Anyway, but those are the ones. We endeavor to do better keeping Asher off the screens, but sometimes, look, you got to make dinner and keep him distracted so he doesn't go flinging himself off a couch. And Miss Rachel will sit him still for about 10 minutes. So that's what we go with. Mark B in the YouTube comments, most uncomfortable moment in your career on live radio. I've told the Wilford Brimley story before, where I was interviewing the actor Wilford Brimley live on the radio in Wyoming. And I asked a question. I had 3-5 minutes to fill. And I asked my first question anticipating it was going to be a long answer that I could play off of. I asked him what he loved about living in Wyoming, and he told me not many people. And I had no follow-up to that. And it was an uncomfortable spot of dead air. But uncomfortable moment on live radio. I can tell you this one. When we were live broadcasting the first Chiefs victory parade, the first Chiefs Super Bowl parade, and we were hovering over the dump button, the delay button, like our lives depended on it, me and Brendan. That was uncomfortable, especially when Tyreek Hill referred to Andy mother freaking Reid, and that's what he said. He said freaking, and that was a terrifying moment. That was a flop sweat moment there. Just a couple of examples that I can think of off the top of my head. Thanks for the question, Mark B. Appreciate that. Let's see if we've got some other questions here. Let's go to the text line and see if we've got some questions. Text from the 785, flip-flops, hey dudes, or Crocs. I am not a big shoe guy as a general rule. I will buy one pair of tennis shoes that I will wear for like a year and a half, and then I will go get a new pair. And lately, it's been a pair of black Skechers. Like, that's what I buy. They're comfortable. I wear them around. I keep my old pair to mow the lawn in. And then because I bought this pair probably this summer. So I'll probably be good for another pair around December 26th, January 27th. I'll buy another pair of shoes. As far as not tennis shoes, though, I guess I'd lean to flip-flops. I don't own any Crocs. I don't own any Hey Dudes. My son likes Crocs. My son's got these baseball Crocs. We bought them at the Cracker Barrel. Can you believe that? A pair of baseball-themed Crocs at the Cracker Barrel. My son loves them. My wife likes the Hey Dudes. I just wear tennis shoes, just regular old hanging around tennis shoes, basketball shoes, whatever you want to call them. That's just always kind of been my go-to shoe. I've never been a big shoe guy any other way. Thanks for the question. Here's one from the 785. This is a sports question. This is a question I actually have I have an answer for. They were listening to the K-State basketball game last night, wanted to know why Nastia Claessens, the Belgian national, was not with the team. She's actually training with the Belgian national team this week. So she was allowed to take a week and go back to her native country and train with the national team. And so that is what she is doing, and she will return to the K-State roster next week. So if you were listening to the game last night and wondered why Claessens didn't play, that's why. So thanks for the question, and thanks for listening to K-State basketball from the 785. See what else we got here on the YouTube chat. JB wants to know if the show has ever considered doing a pie to the face challenge like the Dan Patrick show. Try not to steal too many bits. But we will never rule anything out. As much fun as you guys had, and as we had, frankly, with the arm wrestling thing, that kind of opened our eyes to, like, the permissiveness of the audience is a big deal, right? Like, if you're going to do something silly, you have to trust that the audience is going to embrace it. And I think we were a little tentative going into the arm wrestling thing, how much you all were going to embrace that. And, man, you all embraced it. Which was a really, really cool thing, a really, really gratifying thing. If I can go inside baseball for a little bit and just give my gratitude to you guys in the audience for going with us that day. And so now we trust that you'll go with us when we do karaoke, when we get to 900 YouTube subscribers, and that you would go with us if we did the pie to the face thing, or any other bits like that we can get away from sports and do something silly like Ask Me Anything, for instance. And that you guys will go with us and you guys will have fun with us. Because we're not just the, stick to sports. You know, we love talking about sports. I love talking about sports. I love talking about the games, thinking about the games, thinking about the narratives that emerge from the games. And I'm grateful to have the audience that we do have that likes to talk about those things as well. But every now and then it's fun to arm wrestle your friend. so we do. We enjoy that. Last question that I'll take today from Christopher in the live chat. Do you have any aspirations of doing a higher level play-by-play at some point? Because I think you probably could. Look, if the Kansas City Royals called me tomorrow, said, "Hey, we're replacing Denny Matthews at some point, and we'd like you to sit in the booth next to Jake Eisenberg for the next 50 years," I would listen. I would hear that out. I think you always, no matter what it is you do, I think you always aspire, and I've always aspired to do it at the highest possible level that I could. But I'm also a big believer in being where your feet are and making the big time where you are. I've always really believed in that. So for me, there is no higher level play-by-play right now than Santa Fe Trail and Holton on Friday, because that's the biggest game in the Santa Fe Trail community, and that's the biggest game in Holton, and that's the biggest game in the lives of some of those kids, and it's the biggest game in the lives of some of their parents and some of their peers and some of the coaches and some of the officials. And so if I don't treat that like that's the highest level of play-by-play there is, I'm doing all of them a disservice. So while it's fun to dream, and I still do. I'm 39 years old. That's probably too old to dream, but I still dream. I still dream about getting that call from the Royals or the Colorado Rockies or K-State someday saying, "Hey, do you just want to fill in for one day?" And I believe in my abilities. I believe I'd call a good game. I believe the audience would be satisfied and enjoy having me behind the microphone at that level of the broadcast. But I'm also a big believer that the biggest game is the next one. No matter what level it is, no matter what sport it is, that's the biggest game to everybody involved in it. So it better be the biggest game to me. And I mean that sincerely. So I appreciate the compliment, Christopher. I do. And like I said, I still have dreams. I still have aspirations. But if the biggest games I ever get to do are right here in the capital city, high school and Washburn and other things like that, then that's A-okay by me. Plus, the one other time I did pro sports, the one time I was the voice of the Wichita B-52s of the Professional Arena Soccer League in 2013 and 2014, never got paid for that. So that's not a great track record of doing pro sports for me. I did pro sports for a season. I made $0 off of that. So maybe not the best track record there. Anyway, that's going to do it for Ask Me Anything. Thank you all for the outstanding questions. We'll take a break, come back with a final word next. Final word time here on 580 Sports Talk. Thank you again for the great questions on Ask Me Anything. And thank you, too, both on the text line and in the YouTube comments for the kind words about my own work, my play-by-play. There's a text here that says you can tell that your games are important to you and that you do care. And that's the one thing I've never been able to fake my whole entire career. I care. People ask me, I've been around this area long enough time. Well, are you a Chiefs fan? Are you a Royals fan? Are you a KU or K-State fan? And I can't really claim that, I think being a fan is a different deal. And I think you got to be careful not to get too wrapped up, because sometimes if you're too into it, you lose sight of, you start viewing things through, certain colored glasses, and you lose sight of those, the things that you need to be critical of, for example. But I care. I care if those teams do well, and I want to see them do well, largely because it matters to you guys. You caring makes me care. That's just the relationship that we have. And I hope it's as meaningful to you as it is to me. And that's the note I'll end today's show on. We'll be back tomorrow from 3 until 6. My name is Dan Lucero. This was 580 Sports Talk. Good night.